Lesson 4.1 is all dealing with the coordinate plane. So we're getting ready to learn how to start graphing different equations, but before we do that, we need to be familiar with the coordinate plane. Okay, so whenever we talk about a coordinate plane, it's a graph, okay, that has an x-axis. Your x-axis goes straight through here. It's always going to go left to right. And then you have a y-axis. Your y-axis will always go straight up and down. Okay? Our coordinate plane is divided into 4 different quadrants. We write those quadrants with Roman numerals. Quadrant 1 starts here in the top right corner. And then we go counterclockwise to count the rest of our quadrants. Quadrant 2 is here, quadrant 3 is here, and quadrant 4 is here. Okay? We know, all right, that, like I said, it's divided into 4 different quadrants. Each axis, we can find out exactly what an ordered pair, which quadrant it's going to be in, just by looking at the numbers, because I know this is the origin of my graph. Right here is the origin. This point is 0. All numbers from here over are positive, typically starting with 1, 2, 3, and going over. All numbers to the left of the origin are negative, again, typically starting with -1, -2, and going over. Okay? On the y-axis, all values going up are positive, starting with 1, 2, 3, and all values going down from the origin are negative. I always want to, whenever I have a point in my coordinate plane, okay, I can identify it. I can identify what quadrant it's going to be in just by looking at the ordered pair, okay? But before we do this, we're going to actually take some ordered pairs and we're going to plot each of these points. Whenever you have a set of numbers in a set of parentheses, okay, they are called an ordered pair. They are always listed with the number that represents the x-axis. First, remember that was the axis that goes left to right, and then the y-axis, which is the axis that goes vertical, straight up and down. All right, so what they want us to do is they want us to take these ordered pairs and we're going to plot them in our graph. Okay, so I'm going to change my screen to a what looks like a graph piece of paper. So you're going to want a piece of graph paper for this lesson, and I'm going to draw my y and x axis here. I'm going to label the numbers. So like I said, this origin right here, this middle point is 0, and from there I'm going to go 1, 2, and I'm going to start with my positive numbers. I'm going to go all the way until I get to 9. And then I'm going to do my negative values on my x-axis. Okay, and I'm going to write a little x here so I remind myself that this is the x-axis. And then I'm going to start with my y values. Again, this is the origin, so it's 0, so everything above it is going to be a positive number. 1, 2, and I'm going to, again, go up to 9. Actually, I may just go up to 8. Okay, and all my numbers are negative below the origin. All right, and I'm going to write a y here, so I remind myself that this is the y-axis, okay? Typically, whenever you have a graph, there are arrows on either end to tell you that this graph does keep going. It would go on forever, okay? But you only need to draw pieces that you need. However, remember, whatever unit you decide to do the x-axis in, like if you're going up by ones, the y-axis also has to be or increasing or decreasing by that same unit. So if you're going over by 1, then you got to go up by 1. If you're going over by 2, then you've got to go up by 2. You cannot use different numbers. Like I couldn't start off with 1 here on the x-axis, but label my first line 2 on the y. It would not work out. Your graph would be skewed. Okay, so the first point that they wanted me to plot was 0.45. So I'm going to use a green dot here. Okay, I'm going to write that point first of all onto my graph paper. And I'm going to locate that. Remember, our first number is x. Our second number is y. So I go to the x-axis and I go over 4. Now, I'm not going to place a dot at 4 on the x-axis because this ordered pair is 1 point, not 2. Once I go over 4, then I'm going to go on my y-axis up 5. This is your landing point. That is where your point, your one ordered pair is placed. Now I'm going to erase these lines so that they don't confuse you here. And that's the first ordered pair. Okay? Let's do the next one. I'm going to use a different color so it's easy to see. The next ordered pair was 2, 0. Okay, so that means I need to locate 2 on my x-axis, so I go over 2. And then my y value is 0, which means I don't go anywhere because I can't go up 1 because it's not 1. I can't go down 1 because it's not -1. So I keep my point right here directly on my x-axis. The next point that we have is -3, 8. So I'm going to go to -3 on my x-axis, and then I'm going to go up all the way to the 8 and put my point. Then I'm going to do -7, -6. So I'm going to go over to the -7 and down to the -6 here and place my point. And then last but not least, we're going to go to 0, -9. Okay, now my x value is 0, which means I stay right here at the origin. There's nowhere. I can't go to the left. I can't go to the right. So I stay right here at 0, and then it's telling me to go down to -9. So I'm going to place my point right here. So each of these points on this graph represents the ordered pairs. Now, let's label our quadrants of our graph because you are going to need to know these quadrants. All right? Where is quadrant 1? It's going to be located right up here in the top right-hand corner. Then I go counterclockwise, quadrant 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I have my x and y axes labeled, I've got my quadrants labeled, and I've plotted all of my points. And now you want to make sure that I was able to use different colors with these points, but if you're using a pencil on your homework, you're going to want to say, this is point A. And then when you plot point A, write a little A beside it so I know, okay, this is what point goes with what. Otherwise, I have no idea what you've done, okay? So now what they've done is they've given it to me in reverse order. Now the points are already plotted, and they want me to write the ordered pair that would describe these points. So we're going to start with point A here. Remember, an ordered pair is always written x, comma, y. So I'm going to go to my x-axis, which is always going to be the horizontal line. Where does that point A line up with on the x-axis? At -2. So I know my first point is going to be -2. Then where does this point line up with on the y-axis? 4. So I know my ordered pair will be -2, 4. Okay, let's do that with point B. Point B, where does it line up with on my x-axis? At 3. Okay, my y-axis is going to be 1. Let's do the same thing with all of the different points. C is going to be located at -1 because that's where it goes on my x-axis, and -5, which is my y. If you look right here and right here. The most common mistake people make whenever they're labeling ordered pairs is they forget and they do y then x. Remember, you always need to do x then y. Okay, D. D is going to be at 6, -2. E, okay, think about this. On my x-axis, where is it at on my x-axis? 2. But did I go up at all or down at all on my y-axis? No. So that means it is 0. 2, 0. And then lastly, point F, okay? Did I go left or right at all on my x-axis? No. It would be easy if you drew a line, if you like to do it like that. And where would you fall on the x-axis? At 0. So that's how I know it's going to be 0. And then where am I at on my y-axis? -4. So that's how we would label the points that have already been plotted on our coordinate plane. Okay? Again, let's label our quadrants just so we get used to it. Quadrant 1 starts here, 2, 3, and 4. And that's your introduction to the coordinate plane.